All right, guys. Good afternoon. Um, I wanted to welcome everyone to our health series discussion. What we decided to do as a part of what is the we are as a part of the Black and Brown community because we realize that anytime there's a pandemic within the country, the Black and Brown community,
Good afternoon.
is disproportionately
I
impacted.
wanted to welcome everyone
Hold on, I hear
to
feedback.
our health series discussion. What we decided to do
Give
as
me
a part
one
of what is
moment.
we are as part of the Black and Brown
Sorry about that because I'm hearing my own feedback. So one of the things that we decided to do as a part of the Black and Brown community, because we wanted to share and impart information so that we can save ourselves and we can save our community. So our goal as a part of this is to import like four things. We have four goals. Is one is to impart knowledge. We want to make sure that the knowledge that we impart to you is truthful and vetted as best as possible. Number two is we want to make sure that the information is bite-sized enough for you to digest and apply it to your life. Because a lot of times, particularly these panelists that we have, they're experts in their field and they're trying to cram everything down within a specific period of time that has taken them a lifetime to build up. So we're trying to impart bite-sized information to you. We want to empower you. And then fourthly, we want to make sure that you walk away with something tangible that we'll be sending out that you can use that and apply it to your life. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is with as a part of this series is you don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas. And so this conversation that we are doing, or the series of conversations that we're doing, is to impart ideas, implement them, and to move forward with that. So, just as a few housekeeping before I introduce our panelists and we jump right into it. This is how our panel is going to run. Start your conversations and questions that you may have. Place them in the Q&A below, and we'll respond. Then, any type of conversation or chit chat that you may want to have, start the conversation in the chat. Go ahead and place that in the chat. Move forward from there. But we will also have if you didn't have an opportunity to submit your questions ahead of time, we will address your questions. And if we do not have an opportunity to address your questions on this, we'll be back next Thursday, same time, same place. And the discussion will be geared towards next Thursday on the 4th. It's specifically healthcare, access to healthcare and nutrition. So that is what our whole focus will be about. Then on the 11th, we're going to be talking about our mental health and our emotional health. We cannot negate those, and that's on the 11th. And then on the 18th, financial and spiritual health, because they go hand in hand. And so we need to make sure we get our money right. And if we don't have any money, how to get it right. So those are all the things that we're going to be talking about. That's our housekeeping. We're now going to introduce our fabulous panelists. They are not, and when I say that this discussion is a Black and Brown discussion. It is not an alumni discussion. It is something that is going to help all of us throughout the diaspora across wherever we're able to touch. So we're going to start off with Miss Beverly Grandison. She is the owner of Premier Health Wellness Consulting, a graduate of Florida A&M University and South University. She holds her master's in professional counseling. She's a certified health coach. She's a retired Army Captain Airborne, lifetime Girl Scout, Rocks Inc., DAB, and a Rotarian. She has 15 plus years of experience providing health and wellness education. She has overcome a disease herself, multiple sclerosis, and has been living medicine free and in control of her health. Her passion is to educate and empower the underserved populations within this market. And that is Miss Beverly, and she is going to be speaking on nutrition. Then we have Dr. Shanta Hayes. Dr. Shanta Hayes is an academic operations officer, theology and Christian education professor, youth coordinator, and lead chaplain. She is the author of several books: Family Worship, Reaching All Who Attend, Financial Wisdom for Financial Freedom, and Not Just for Paper. She holds her bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology and a master's degree in the same subject from the University of Miami here in Florida. She has a bachelor's of arts, master's of arts, PhD in theology from Life Christian University, and most recently, a Christian counseling degree from Grace and Truth Christian University. Then we have Jorge Soriano. He was born and raised in Cuba. Jorge moved to Tampa, Florida in 1998. He's a proud graduate of the University of South Florida. Jorge is a certified financial planner, practitioner, and holds the IRS enrolled agent designation. With 10 years of experience in financial services industry, he is dedicated to educating individuals on topics such as personal finance, self-improvement, and the importance of financial literacy. Jorge enjoys traveling, supporting the local arts, and a well-balanced, healthy lifestyle with his family. Next, we have Justin McLean. Justin currently serves as co-owner and licensed therapist at Home Again Counseling in downtown St. Petersburg. Justin guides his clients through the unwanted feeling of anxiety, depression, or anger towards an internal place of relief. Justin is specially trained in counseling individuals through recent and past traumas. Justin has years of experience working with children and adults involved in the foster care system and public school system. He attained his master's from Florida State University and has his bachelor's from the University of Central Florida. Justin is a community advocate and currently serves on the board of directors at CASA. Rafael Gonzalez is an attorney with 35 years of experience in healthcare, disability, insurance, and legal industries. He has his undergraduate from the University of Florida. He obtained his law degree from Florida State University, and he is a USF adjunct in workers' compensation, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. He is engaged in state and federal legislation, regulation, and administrative policy. And last but not least, we have Dr. Ruben Faluji. He is a therapist at the University of South Florida's Counseling Center. Dr. Ruben completed his doctoral training at the University of Missouri in counseling psychology, where he is recognized for his involvement in activism addressing individual and institutional oppression. Dr. Ruben uses his wisdom gained from a variety of life experiences and his training in psychology to inform his work with clients, groups, and organizations. His interests include multicultural counseling, identity development, conflict resolution, community and team building, diversity, and social justice education. That is our lovely and esteemed panelists. And so we are going to jump right in with our first question. And this is in regards to healthcare and nutrition. And so our first question is, what is the biggest challenge in the health field at this moment as it pertains to COVID in our community? And just for the audience, when we say our community, we are referring to the Black and the Brown community. And so we're going to start off with Beverly, and then we're going to follow up with Rafael, and then any other panelists can chime in.
Well, Erica, good morning. Well, it's not afternoon now, so good afternoon, everybody out there, and thank you all for joining us. It's just an honor to be part of this amazing panel to really just educate and empower so many of our people to really make informed decisions. So, you know, we're in some very interesting times, as we all know, and I think the biggest challenge has been truly the lack of education. That's the huge part of why we don't make the decisions we make, because we don't have all the information that we're supposed to have. Also, not relying on reliable sources. So we have to make sure that the sources that we're going to listen to, like this awesome panelists that you have here in front of you, are really backed by science and not just going with the mainstream media out there to promote things that might not technically be accurate. So that's my biggest challenge right now, is really getting people in front of information that is applicable, doable, affordable, and that's going to have fun. I'm big on having fun. So any of the panelists, you guys can always just jump in and add to that. But I think all of us as educators, for the most part here, can honestly say that it's because of the lack of access sometimes to what they would say, okay, they, and I say they, because when we dumb it down for people to understand that, yes, eating healthy is actually affordable and can actually produce a better quality of life as we get the education to the younger and younger generation, then it makes a difference. And so as a corporate professional counselor, I just go into the corporations and really educate the workforce wellness, because most people spend a lot of their time there. Of course, we know the world is changing today as we see it, and a lot of people are teleworking, working from home. So what does that look like? What we don't want you to do is gain the COVID 10, like the freshman 10, right? We don't want you to do that while sitting at home teleworking. And so making sure that we're putting processes and things into place that's going to really foster health and building your immune system so that you can fight whatever else is to go on. So that's one of the challenges. So who's with me? Who's talking? Raphael? I think it was Raphael. Who was talking with me?
Yep, it's me.
Yeah.
I love it. I totally agree with you. For me, from a legal perspective, the biggest challenge in health, specifically regarding COVID-19 and what our Black and Brown communities are going through today, is now that we have reopened here in Florida and throughout the rest of the country, what's going to happen with these numbers? For example, here in Florida, we've tested over 1 million folks and over 52,000 folks have come back positive. About 6% of those folks have come back, hospitalized, with about 4% of all of those passing away from it. Now that we are open, what's going to happen to that, right? We know from looking at, for example, studies in Wisconsin, for studies in Illinois, in New York, in Louisiana, that especially the Black population has been affected 3 times as much as any other component of the population in each of those areas. We don't have numbers like that here in Florida, but from a country perspective, we know that that's happening in our Black and Brown communities. What's going to happen? So that question mark is huge. This morning, the U.S. Department of Labor indicated that 2.1 million folks applied for unemployment benefits last week. If we now add up all of the folks over the last 10 weeks that have applied for unemployment, we're now at 40.8 million Americans without a job applying for unemployment. That's significant, certainly in the economic side of things, but from a medical perspective, we know that the grand majority of those folks will lose health insurance. Where are those folks going to go? We are now going to see millions of folks coming over to the Medicaid system, which, because of the tax base that's already attacked because folks aren't working, is going to be severely stressed. So both access to healthcare, access to health insurance, and certainly the big question mark as to what's about to happen to our communities, for me, is sort of the biggest challenge, the biggest concern that I've got regarding health in our communities today.
And so, Raphael, thank you for those numbers and that data. And so, yeah, so what I really want to focus on is really not having the fear of what's to happen and how we can get into the driver's seat to make sure that we're doing preventive care so that we can sustain what there is to come. And so, again, getting and debunking a lot of the myths, because I know Black and Brown community, we love to, promote myths and untruths. And so understanding that, or focusing more on what can I do to make sure that me and my family are going to weather this storm, whatever that looks like. So for me, that's healthy communities. That's what this whole panel is here to talk about, is building our community stronger, right? So I tell everybody in all of my talks, get to know your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors and love on your neighbors. And let's make this a community event as we're going through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of all of this. And build your immune system. I'm very biased, and all the panelists, they've heard a little bit about me already, about let's do prevention instead of treatment. And what does that look like is what the media is not covering. Build, the simple things in life, right? Eating more fruits and vegetables, berries and grains, getting outside, doing some walking and getting some fresh air, making sure that your kids are moving, and that you're not just sitting sedentary, because yes, we're going to eventually have to end up with all of the collateral damage past this. And then I love that Erica has put that spiritual piece in there, because all of that encompasses the importance of where we're going in the future, to make sure, again, that we're not getting, information that's going to make us be in fear, but information that we can take and then make sure that we are going to the store and getting the healthier foods and not eating the junk foods that's going to keep us sick. And as Raphael said, that our communities seem to have more percentage of impact. Well, the comorbidities, all these medication loads that our Black and brown communities are on are not helping that situation. And so using food as medicine, and I'm really big on that, so that we can really start to think about how we are thinking about what we are putting out in the atmosphere. Okay, so having that positive mental attitude and then acting on that. So getting into communities that are fostering health and fostering, bartering amongst each other. Grow your food, we do a lot of things that really show people the how to do what to do, so that we can just not have to live in fear. I hope that makes sense for the panelists. And who wants to jump in from there, because I don't want us to focus on the
wanted to add to that.
I want to add just a little bit to what Beverly said. You're right. We really do need to be growing our own fruits and vegetables. One of the things that I was reminded of from one of the local ministries here is that a lot of us in the Black and brown communities were so used to constantly going to the grocery store every other day, not buying the good stuff, but going every other day, that when we were trying to stay at home, it was very difficult. And they had to then go out and actually help teach them that, hey, you can store food, not your salads and things of that sort, of course, but if you were growing it, when we were growing it way back in the day, having our own gardens, it made it a lot easier. And, I know we do have some different products there that they can do that as well, but making sure we're eating healthier, making sure we recognize it's not about, I need to go every day, because as the social distancing continues to come into place, we weren't going out, we weren't leaving our houses every single day, or we weren't supposed to, because we're putting ourselves in danger and, harm from that standpoint. So yes, we want to do that. And I'm glad that this particular church, it was Abundant Life here in Tampa, that was looking at doing that and going to the communities and saying, hey, this is how you get on the internet. And this is how, because they were, in some cases, left out of all of this extra technology that we were doing, as well as on that health side.
And let me jump in there, Shanta. Thank you for mentioning that. R.J. Stevenson, he's a pastor with the AME Church down in our Tampa area, and they do a big food drive, and he's also doing a community garden with aeroponic gardening, where he's going to actually be growing food for the community, for them to actually be able to have access in that food desert. So I'm really excited about that young man's effort. I'll get the name of the church, and I'll make sure, Erica, you get that information.
Yes, and that was what I was going to say. Everyone on here who's listening to this, whether you're going to listen to the rebroadcast, every information that we live here, because all of us don't live and reside in the same place. Mm-hmm. And so you need to know where we all have pockets of different food deserts. And so if I'm sharing something out of Tampa and I live in Palm Beach or I live in Virginia, how can I get? So we're sharing information. This is an community sharing information. And it's not a community where you're just thinking of your neighborhood. I'm just looking at it from a community standpoint of wherever this video touches. And so we're just trying to impart information that way. So we're going to move on to our next question, and this is really regarding our mental health and emotional health. And so the first question, this is going to be directed to Dr. Rubin and Justin. What are the most critical challenges that we must take to face the future effectively in regards to our mental and emotional health? And that is regards to this pandemic, what is going on within the Black and Brown community, all the images that we're seeing recently of the deaths that have taken place, and how can we shape that? So Dr. Rubin or Justin, whoever wants to jump in first, go ahead. He pointed to Justin. Justin, you're on mute.
All right, sorry about that. So it kind of goes with a little bit piggybacking on what Beverly said and Raphael was saying. I think it's twofold. I think there's the biggest change is access to mental health care, and also normalizing mental health challenges, and removing that stigma. Because in our field, we still see that stigma of, going out and getting mental health services. Of course it's getting better. There's certain athletes, like I'm a big sports guy, so there's Kevin Love, LeBron talks about mental health, DeMar DeRozan. So more of us are talking about it, but I'm still seeing the stigma, so I work with a lot of, teenagers. So when teenagers come in, one of the first things, they don't want to be there, right? And one of the first things they say is, hey, my grandmother dragged me here. I'm not crazy, and we have this misconception of, hey, if you go and receive mental health services, then there must be something severely wrong with you, and then this is an analogy I use with my clients. I say to them, hey, did you work out at all this week or eat something healthy? And they usually say yes, one of the two. So I say, hey, then you're working on your physical health. And then I ask, hey, did you go to church or meditate or anything like that? And sometimes they say yes. Then I would say, hey, you're working on your spiritual health. Then I say, mental health is just as important as those two areas. And sometimes in some cases more important, Look at me as, you don't even have to call me a counselor or a therapist. Just when you come and see me, just think of it as we're just training. I'm your mental health trainer, and this is your mental health gym. Because the thing is, I wish I can look everybody in the eye and say, hey, horrible things aren't going to happen to you, but they are, And all I do in my practice is helping folks get the tools to be able to effectively manage those traumas and those scary things that happen to us in a healthy way. And access to services, what I'm seeing is, like you guys were saying, folks are losing their job, right? So one of the biggest ways of people paying for services for me is through insurance, right? If you don't have a job, then, you don't have insurance and you can't get mental health services. And private pay is just, it's really expensive. So I'm worried about the access to services and things like that.
Okay.
So, Ruben, if you want.
Dr. Rubin?
Yeah, thanks, Justin, for that. You hit on some really good points. And thanks, Erica and the other panelists for doing this and being a part of it. Thanks, audience, for being here. So I'll try to make this quick because I can be long-winded sometimes, but I don't know if folks who are on this call have had the privilege to fly on an airplane, but if you have, you'll understand. If you haven't, ask somebody who has about this. But the stewardess is up there at the front of the plane before the plane takes off, and it goes through their spiel, her, his, or them, their spiel, and they talk about what happens if the cabin depressurizes and those masks fall. Justin knows about this. Most counselors know about this metaphor. But this mask comes down because the cabin's depressurizing. It's really hard to breathe and get oxygen. And they tell you to do something with the mask first. Do you all know what it is?
Apply.
They tell you. What did they say, Eric? You get to be the audience.
Apply your mask first before helping anybody else. Save yourself first.
Yes. Yes, and this is something that comes up often in my work with clients and in my work with just people generally. We have to tend to our needs first. I think there's a lot of social programming and a lot of reasons why we focus on other needs first. But this is an invitation to begin, and this isn't saying be selfish and not care about other people. This is just how we prioritize ourselves. A lot of people put self second, third, fourth, and or maybe last, and other things, responsibilities, commitments first. And so for me, when this hit me, that Ruben, you got to take care of yourself, bro. You got to be responsible for you first, more so than your family, more so than your friends, more so than your group identification with men, being Black, African American, Nigerian, all these things. And again, some of this is cultural too, because this is not to invalidate, because I know a lot of us are in collectivistic cultures, and this is not saying, F your family. This is not saying that, but this is saying in terms of what you focus on, how do you prioritize yourself, and can you put yourself first? So for me, what this looks like, and this is and I'm so glad this is a holistic panel where we're touching on the different aspects of ourself. I think physical, spiritual, emotional, and psychological. So for me, with my physical health, I make it a point to work out, because I know when I work out, in the research supports this, the psychological research supports this. A lot of different fields support this, but there's a correlation besides activity, movement, exercise, and your emotional well-being, how you feel, right? I know it stinks when I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym, but every time I walk out of the gym, I'll be like, damn, I felt good. And I don't drink coffee because I don't need it. It's my natural endorphins fueling me, right? So that's physical health. And these are just examples. This can look so different for other people, but I think to begin to explore each of these domains of your life and say, what can I do for me? What am I doing for myself? What am I not doing for myself, right? Emotionally, psychologically. Some of it's cultural, some of it's all culture, but it can be male culture. It can be, growing up in a Nigerian household, Latino, Black, but I was taught to create space between my emotions. And then when I started to learn about the psychology, it's like, oh my God, this is not how humans are supposed to be. Like I become a robot when I disconnect from my emotions. So confronting my emotions. And this could be very scary. A lot of therapy is about creating a space so people can courageously confront what we buried. If you keep pushing stuff down long enough, you ever see like a 2-liter, I don't even know if people drink 2 liters anymore. I'm going to say soda for Beverly because I know she's a nutritionist, but you know what happens when you shake that bottle long enough? It will burst. And that's the same thing with our emotions when we don't create outlets for our emotions and or process them. So that's emotional. And I'm getting long-winded, so I'm about to bring this back around. And then last is spiritual. And then I think when I say spiritual, it can capture religion. And I'm also talking about something bigger than religion, something that captures this shared humanity that we all have. Because I guess, and this is a personal belief, but some truth to it, we're all walking around with these souls in body bags. But there's a human thing, a force that connects all of us, and really considering what that is and what that means for your purpose on planet Earth. It's a very powerful thing, because once it's a very scary journey. I remember the first time I questioned my Christianity. I grew up as a Christian. It was scary. It took a long time for me to really ask that question. What is my identification with religion and or spirituality? So obviously that can look different for everybody, and I'm not shaming anybody who believes anything, but consider how that hinders you and or helps you. Because a lot of the things I got from religion helped me, and there were some things that I got that were not helpful and that were toxic for me and then the people around me. All right, and we can get into that in another conversation. So just to bring everything back around, when we put our mask on or focus on our needs, what we're doing is we're healing ourselves. We're taking responsibility for our own healing instead of maybe becoming a victim to circumstance and or becoming a victim to other people, waiting for other people to help us or rescue us. This is not to say that we're to blame for our situations, because there are institutional and individual efforts that make life different and difficult for us as Black and brown folks. And this is an invitation to say, what can I do for myself in this moment?
Yep.
Next, when you start with yourself, and it's kind of like a paradox. When you start with yourself, you actually have more of a capacity to serve others. People who know me know I use the sun metaphor religiously, and I actually tell people my religion's love, because what I think of the sun, what the sun does is it's a self-generating ball of energy. It doesn't need an electrical outlet. What it does is it generates energy within itself, and that's kind of what I'm talking about with the face mask. When we can begin to heal ourselves, the byproduct of that is a lot of love and energy to give outward. And I think that's what we need in our communities to face some of these challenges ahead. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rubin. Next, we want to move on to, because we're looking at to get to the Q&A section, we want to talk about from a financial perspective, financial and spiritual perspective. And it's like a combination question is like, what is a holistic financial planning and why it matters? And so I'm going to move over to Jorge first and then Dr. Shanta. So
Thanks.
We'll go from there, and then we're going to move into our Q&A. And I see that we have a couple of questions that we're going to pose, but I want to move into that perspective first. So Jorge, you're up.
Thanks. I appreciate the rolling of the R's, Erica.
The Jorge, yes, I've been
There you go.
practicing rolling of R's.
Listen,
more than enough Spanish lessons. More than enough.
The first half of 2020 will be a time to remember. Our community, specifically, of course, our underserved Black and brown community, are feeling both physical and financial impacts like never before due to this pandemic. We have continued to see record stock market volatility, financial hardships, lifestyle disruptions, and a quarantine that is really disrupting our daily lives. To help individuals and businesses, the U.S. government did deploy the largest stimulus in history. And this aid package is known as the CARES Act. And it's truly aimed at stimulating the economy and keeping America afloat. And I'll discuss a few things maybe on the questions in regards to some of the benefits that the CARES Act is really about and the relief that it provides. But I also want to answer your question in regards to what is a holistic plan and why it's important. You see, a holistic financial plan is not just about investments. It's not just about tax planning. It's not about estate planning. It's not about insurance planning or retirement planning. It's all of that. And it's all about your goals. It's about your values and your experience with money, and focusing on building positive behaviors and habits, and ultimately your financial health, which overall is wellness. With a holistic financial plan, as an advisor, again, I'm not just focused on investments. It's truly a top-down approach that we plan for all aspects of your life. And that's why it's important. Other than that, it's important for times like these to help you with the insecurities when the markets have been so volatile and the economy shrinks. But really, it's important so you have an organized plan to continue to help you conquer your financial goals, whether that be for a comfortable retirement or debt management, starting a business, you name it. That's why I think that having a holistic plan is so important and can help you and your family beyond money.
Dr. Shanta, sorry.
Yes, and thank you, Jorge, because I really believe in what you said. I think in our communities, just staying on the financial side for a moment, I always mix it with the spiritual side as well, because I can talk about all of those areas. because I believe if you're working with other people's money, you definitely need Jesus, for sure. Okay. So, but on the financial side, typically in our communities, some of us are into the investing, and I like to get people over there, but in many cases, it's a money management issue. I tell people up front when I counsel them or when I work with them, I tell them to have 6 to 9 months worth of gross income ahead of time. That that's your savings plan initially. That's your minimum goal. That way, when something like this happens, you're not stressed out, you're not anxious, you're not worried about anything, because you know you can last for a certain time period. It used to be 3 to 6 months. Well, this magnified everything that we were doing wrong when it came to finances. If we were not saving, we didn't have a savings. We were stressed. We were staying up at night. If we were spending too much money, and in many instances, our communities are consumers and not accumulators. And because of that, we're running out as soon as they came up with the LeBron James sneakers. We're out there regardless of mass or anything, and we're buying those sneakers with the $1,200 stimulus. The stimulus was great, but it was an opportunity if you were still working, that you could then start your savings. If you didn't have an emergency fund, you could build it there, or you could pay off some debt and still have something just in case you did lose your job. If you lost your job and you were sitting there going, okay, I've got an extra $600 because now they're giving me a stimulus for food, I'm going to use it wisely. How can I wisely use it? And so when it comes to the financial piece, it really has affected everybody. But in our communities, we see so much detriment. Yes, I know my 401k, I'm not looking at it, okay? I still have a few more years because I know it's going to bounce back. But most of us didn't have that already started, and we're struggling just in the paycheck to paycheck. I say, I owe, so off to work I go. I tell people slavery is alive and well in America, because we're slaves to a job that is going to pay us hourly. And we have to get out of that mindset and become more producers and more creative in what we do when it comes to that finance. But we need to look at, what am I doing? I love how Jorge said it starts off with a goal. If you don't have a goal in mind, you're not going to reach it. If, it's just a wish, if you, I want to get there, but I have no plan to get there. And we need the plan when it comes, and I know I stayed on the financial side. I'm sorry. But I also believe that as I switch to the spiritual side of it, that God created us all differently. So we have a relationship with money that is different. When we learn how we handle money, whether I am a spender or I'm a saver, I need to do something different with my budget depending upon that. And so when I work within how my personality is when it comes to finances, then I can release some of that extra stress trying to be like somebody else, because it doesn't work. Like, I created biblical financial personalities, and that water personality that decides, of course, my lawn guy wants to come over here right now. But if I decide that, hey, I don't want to deal with the reports, I don't want to do a budget, as long as I've got money in the checking account, or my debit card is going to go through, I'm just going to spend it. And I don't care about the financial extra fees that I'm going to get later on. I'm going to have a problem with this, because nobody sat down to say, where's my goal? I need an accountability partner. So it's some of those little things that we have to tweak personally, especially in our communities, that need to come out of those misconceptions and say, I don't have to go buy the latest. I don't have to go get my hair done. I don't have to get my nails done. I don't have to spend all of this money. Yes, I need to take care of myself, Ruben. You're absolutely right, because God says you're supposed to love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you don't start with loving yourself, you can't give from that overflow. So we'll talk about the spiritual side a little bit later. But
I know.
I wanted to jump in really quick, because I am just loving this panel. Oh my goodness. So this was not even like orchestrated, y'all. And it's just amazing how we're gelling off of each other and really saying the same thing. Of course, my panelists know I'm biased, of course, because I think health is wealth. no matter how much money you make or have, no matter how pretty you are, how much you work out, how much church you attend, if you do not have your health, you're not going to make wise decisions just about in every facet of your life. And so I'm excited because those of you who have joined us really are here to honestly, and hopefully we prayerfully hope, take this message out to the masses so that we need help. Y'all, we need help. We need help in getting this message across. I am a big proponent of counseling. My two buddies, Justin and Dr. Rubin, know that we have got to start debunking the myths and all of these hearsay, she said, they said, and really dig deep to, and I like what Dr. Rubin said, take responsibility for our actions. We can't keep blaming they, okay? Because you have panelists right here that you have access to, and will have access to all of us to help you through this process. Y'all don't complicate this thing. We got to keep it simple and have fun. Make the necessary changes that are going to pay you dividends for generations to come. We need to be talking about legacy and thinking about the example that we're setting for others to follow. And if you're not living in this spectrum of the resources that you have right here at your fingertips, then what are you doing? You need to ask yourself that question, because this is just dynamic. You know, Erica, USF, I'm just elated. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I know we could talk for a while, but we're time crunched and we got to go into Q&A. And I realized we had a ton of questions. I only got one each, but you know, there's other sessions. But I have to ask, there's a question that's posed to Justin and Dr. Rubin. It is it prudent to tell your employer that you are actively seeing a mental counselor? So that's one of our questions. Either one can answer. Justin? Dr. Rubin's doing this, pointing to you.
Oh. So is the question if it's necessary, if you have to disclose that information, or
is
do you
it
think
prudent? That's what they said. Is it prudent, as in, is it wise to tell your employer that you're actively seeing a mental counselor? I don't know. That's what they asked. Asking for advice.
Right.
Yeah, no, I would say no. However, when I was at Pinellas County Schools, if you were having an issue and it was affecting your job performance, they couldn't fire you if you had some stuff going on and you were seeking treatment. So for Pinellas County Schools, they would have to give you referrals. I don't know if it translates to corporations and like that.
It does.
Okay, so they have to give you support.
Right, through the employee assistance.
EAP, yep.
Right, program. So I would say, no, you do not have to disclose that information. But I agree with Justin 100%. If it's affecting your work productivity, you don't have to tell them. They know something's wrong. And so before you get fired for your lack of going to get help, and that's the biggest, the 4 words, can you help me? Will transform your life. And they will absolutely open up resources that can absolutely help you. So yeah, totally agree, Justin. Thanks.
Okay.
If I can, from a legal perspective, right, what the panelists have already indicated is absolutely right. There is no legal requirement that you tell your employer that you're having or taking care of yourself in that manner, having that treatment. However, coming forth, asking for that help, and communicating that to your employer may benefit you in that there are now protections, right? There are certain legal protections because you've identified an issue that may be affecting you personally or may be affecting you in your ability to do your job on a daily basis. So where maybe a generation ago, the answer from everybody would have been no way, not ever. I think today, right, we have both state and federal laws that do protect individuals in the work setting who need that type of specific care, treatment of that sort.
Okay, Erica, I did want to answer one of the questions that were asked earlier about those people who are lacking being able to get seen by their counselors or the mental health that they need right now. And one of my, answers is we can't just sit up here and keep on saying, woe is me, woe is me. So what do? What do I need to do to help myself? How about you get into a community of healthy, like-minded people who are going to foster positivity and productivity instead of staying around the negative, and honestly, stop watching the news. Just stop watching the news. The news is negative, it's skewed, and it's not promoting health. Okay, if they were going to promote preventive care for me, then I'd say, hey, plug in. If they were going to promote healthy alternatives to help you through this process instead of fear and distortion, I would not be okay with that. So again, taking responsibility to get into a community of like minds that can help you through this process. Touch, physical touch. I know we're supposed to be social distancing, but a hug, a touch can absolutely transform people's lives. So as we're getting into these phases, guys, get out, start loving on people, build your immune system so that you don't have to be in fear, and let's start getting our lives back in order financially, mentally, physically, spiritually. It's a all holistic bundle that you have to do together.
Let me add on to that, Beverly. I'm glad you brought that up. The community is so important. And that was one of the questions that we had under the spiritual side. One of the benefits that I saw coming out of this is that there are so many people on YouTube channels. There are some good pastors that are out there, preachers that are out there that are teaching the word, because the word touches on every single one of these areas. And when I mention the word, I'm talking about the Bible. So I will say, that definitely from a scriptural standpoint, that all of that is there. And there are some people who their faith is struggling, if you would, during this time. But I look at it from the standpoint of we had gotten so into doing our own thing and forgetting about God. And this gave us an opportunity to come back, as Ruben mentioned, or I should say Dr. Ruben, sorry, that Dr. Ruben mentioned that we needed to be able to pour into ourselves. We forgot that. Sometimes we get so used to, and I'm guilty of it as well, of pouring out for other people that we forget that we need our own. And so I started going back to doing my own devotion, saying, okay, Lord, what are you trying to tell me at this time for me? And I was amazed that for a whole week prior to, I was just getting scripture after scripture. And I started thinking about this and going to bed at night. I'll tell you guys my story. I was up to 5 o'clock in the morning that he kept me up going, you're taking this panel too lightly. You're thinking that it's only going to be on the financial side, but it's really so many people that need to hear what I'm doing in this time and the benefits of what's coming out of this experience, that not only am I putting him back first, and I'm allowing him to tell me that he loves me, and it's not that he's mad at me or he's upset with me. And yes, I've done some things wrong in the past and I made some bad decisions, but when I know to do better, I do better. I can look into the mirror of the word of God and say, okay, I'm not acting like I should. I'm not treating my brother and my neighbor like I should. I need to change my relationships. Yes, I need to do that. But in addition to that, it moves to that next level of saying my priorities were wrong. I didn't have him first, but family was not second. And now I get an opportunity to be with my family. I get a chance to learn about my kids instead of me texting them all the time, which is just transactional and not relational. Or if I'm going out on date night, I'm looking at the phone and I'm not even talking to the person sitting in front of me. We have that opportunity now to get those things back in order so that my mental stability is back in place. But I also have an opportunity to eat well and sit at the dinner table with my family, that now my physical is so much better. And yes, I get the opportunity to work out too, because I'm doing those things too, Dr. Ruben. You're absolutely right. It changes your entire perspective. So when you look at everything that we've been talking about, and that's why I'm glad, again, Beverly as well, that this is holistic, that all of us are talking the same thing. We need to help one another. Yes, we start with ourselves, but we get our priorities in order. And we don't look at it as it's something detrimental, but I say we come out of it with grace and gratitude. We're looking for God's grace to help us and to assist us as we continue to move forward with, because we can't do everything on our own. And we have to recognize we need his power and his might. He's our refuge. But at the same time, I come out with gratitude. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for those people that I can pick up the phone and talk to that encourage me. And even if I'm having a bad day, in the middle of it, they say, but thank God that you had the dirty dishes, because that means that your family ate. Or you wash the clothes, that means that they had something on their back. So we start changing our perspective, and our complete attitude changes about it.
And can I add one little point to that?
Yeah, no problem. I have one more question.
Okay, with community, and it's something I've been hearing a lot, but I wanted to, and I love it. I first heard it from the mayor of Miami when he got the coronavirus. You know, socially distant doesn't mean we have to be emotionally distant. And then with that part, I want to add spiritually distant to that piece too. You know, we can still reach out to our friends, our family, people we know. And the spiritually distant part, we can also be with whatever you believe in, higher power, or even with one in the earth. Like, and I understand this is talking from a state of privilege, but I think Beverly would love this one. Being in tune with the earth, my wife and I garden. We have a garden out, you know, and then so we can have those resources and be in tune with things spiritually and emotionally and building that sense of community.
And okay, so our next question, because I know we have quite a few questions and the panelists have been answering them in the question, but a question just came up in the chat. It says, how can the Black and Latinx community deal with the added pressure of going to work in this pandemic with true fear already, having issues, the stress of being, the stress of calling in Black/Latino during these normal times? And so, like, what, from, I guess it goes to everyone, because going into work or not going into work is going to affect you financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So whomever wants to take that one on first from their perspective. Don't all speak at once.
Well, I think I love what everybody's saying, right? And it's not about religion. Mm-hmm. Perfect love, and I love Dr. Rubin again, perfect love cast out fear, okay? And God is love. And so Dr. Shanta mentioned it, the relationship with the universe, the creator, God, Jesus, whoever you want that entity to be, right? Nature. We can't live in fear, y'all, because we can go outside, get hit by a bus, you can get struck by lightning. I mean, that's, you know, really far, but anything can happen. We can be in the mall, we can get shot down. We see it happening every day. So to have a mindset that you're going to choose, because it is a choice that we all make, to whether we decide to take control of our affairs or feed them, it's a choice. And so we can only live in the present, okay? We can only live in the present. We can't live in the past. I think that's depression. The future is anxiety. And so peace is present. And so living where we are today is where it's at. We can't control all of the stuff that's going on in this nation is really, the only thing we control is us doing the best for us, as you've heard it already, and then taking care of family. I mean, I don't know how, you know, I'm your simple chick. Just keep it simple, y'all. And let's just have fun on this journey through this. I love the attitude of gratitude, Dr. Shanta. I mean, if you're not there, please, I just, you know, beg you, connect with us so that we can get you in the right circles.
Okay, Raphael is going to chime in next, and I just wanted to say we got 3 minutes left.
I'll be quick. So
no, take your time. 3 minutes.
It's really important, right? Those are valuable words, but the reality of what's happening out there today, I mean, there are thousands of lawsuits now having been filed in the last month or so as folks begin to return back to work because employees feel they're not producing an environment that's conducive to my health. As a matter of fact, you may be placing me at greater danger. And so I don't know that I would tell everybody to not listen to the news. It's important to be informed. It's important to know where the laws are out there. It's important to know that you have rights and that there are at least guidance and statutory both state and federal laws that you can demand your employer to behave in a certain manner, right? You can demand that your employer does not place you at risk of contracting these, this disease. So even though we do own it, it is our responsibility. Also know that there are laws there to be able to protect you, your family, your health.
Oh, Dr. Rubin, excuse me, not Dr. Rubin, Raphael, just another quick question if you can squeeze this in. What are your perspectives of migrant farm workers who are undocumented, uninsured, and in most cases afraid to seek services because of ICE laws, but yet are now considered essential workers? And so that was a question that just came through. So I just wanted to see if we could squeeze that one in. For anyone, I understand that we're coming right at time, but I just wanted to get that question out because that just came in.
Really difficult situation for those workers, clearly because of the illegality of their being in this country. We sometimes think that there are no laws to protect them, that employers can do whatever. And that is incorrect, right? There are class action lawsuits pending right now for farm workers that have been placed in situations by employers that really have not taken care of their interests or their health. So even though they may be illegally here, those individuals still have the right to seek legal remedy, to seek legal recourse for wrongs to them.
Okay. Did anyone else want to chime in on that question before? I just wanted to thank you guys so very much. This went better than expected. It is folks who are listening or who are watching the replay. This is to start a conversation. And if you have a question, please, please, please either drop it on our social media and we will put it in the next chat or respond directly to you. And that's USF Black Alumni Society at gmail.com. And we post it on our social media page, and we will be sending out thank yous along with the takeaways from that we've discussed throughout the call. So our next series is going to be next week, Thursday, same time, noon. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. And the one thing that I wanted to say before I go, change will not come if we wait for it for some other person, or if we wait on some other time. We're the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And so we are starting these conversations to change things. We want things to change. Also, you can send your questions to USF Latino Alumni Society at Gmail. Did not forget you guys. And so both of those, again, Black and brown discussion, not an alumni only discussion, because clearly everybody is not from USF. So share this. And once again, I've been your moderator today, Erica Daly from, I am an alumni of the University of South Florida and also the current chair of the USF Black Alumni Society. My story, briefly, I'm a product of the Black diaspora. I'm an immigrant and a proud Jamaican. So on that note, guys, see you next Thursday. Next week, we'll have Dr. Luz Randolph, and she will be your moderator, and we are talking about health and nutrition. So send in those questions, but if you have financial questions and you have mental health questions, send those in, because when it comes to your section, we will be addressing those. Thank you, guys. Have a great day, and thank you, panelists. We truly, truly appreciated you. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later. See you next week.
Oh yeah, that is true. See you next week.
I don't want to hang up. It was so good.
I know, it was good. I appreciate it. Thank you, whoever said that.
Fantastic.